Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay. Now we're going to talk about Ted Bundy, the American serial killer and rapist. If you're new, down below, subscribe, hit the bell. You'll be notified every time I bring up another video. Excuse me. So yeah, let's get into Ted Bundy. Let's talk about him this time. Let's go. American serial killer and rapist Ted Bundy was one of the most notorious criminals in the late 20th century, known to have killed 20 women in the 1970s. He was executed in the electric chair in 1989. Eleanor Louise Caldwell, who went by Louise, was 22 years old and unmarried when she gave birth to her son, Ted. Ted's father may have been Lloyd Marshall, an Air Force veteran and a Penn State graduate, according to Anne Rule, a co-worker of Ted's and the author of the book The Stranger Beside Me. Other sources had Ted's father's name as Jack Worthington, while some rumors, had it that his father was also his grandfather, because Ted's birth certificate listed his father as unknown. His biological father's identity may never be confirmed. In 1951, Louise married Johnny Bundy. While Ted took his last name, he reportedly didn't have much respect for his stepfather, whom he resented for being too uneducated and working class. Johnny and Louise had several children together. Louise was working as a secretary at the University of Puget Sound and still married to Johnny in the 1970s when Ted was accused of his crimes. She refused to believe the charges for years, although she changed her stance after he confessed. Bundy was born in Burlington, Vermont, on November 24, 1946. Bundy started life as his mother's secret shame, as his illegitimate birth humiliated her deeply religious parents. Louise delivered Ted to a home for unwed mothers in Vermont and later brought her son to her parents in Philadelphia. To hide the fact he was an illegitimate child, Bundy was raised as an adopted son of his grandparents and was told that his mother was his sister. Eleanor moved with Bundy to Tacoma, Washington a few years later, and soon married his stepfather, Johnny. From all appearances, Bundy grew up in a content working class family. He became fascinated by knives. A shy but bright child, Bundy did well in school, but not by his peers. As a teenager, a dark side of his character started to emerge. Bundy liked to peer in other people's windows and thought nothing of stealing things he wanted from other people. Bundy graduated from the University of Washington with a degree in psychology in 1972. He had been accepted to the law school in Utah, although he would never earn his degree. While he was a student at the University of Washington, Bundy fell in love with a wealthy, pretty young woman from California. She had everything he wanted: money, class, and influence. He was devastated by their breakup. Many of Bundy's later victims resembled his college girlfriend, attractive students with long, dark hair. By the mid-1970s, Bundy had transformed himself, becoming more outwardly confident and active in social and public matters. He even got a letter of recommendation from the Republican governor of Washington after work in his campaign. Bundy confessed to 36 of the young women across several states in the 1970s, but experts believe that the final tally may have been closer to 100 or more. The exact number of women Bundy killed will never be known. His killings usually followed a gruesome pattern. He often raped his victims before beating them to death. Bundy confessed to the killings of young women across several states in the 1970s, but experts believe that the final tally may have been closer to 100 or more. The exact number of women Bundy killed will never be known. His killings usually followed a gruesome pattern. He often raped his victims before beating them to death. While there is some debate as to when Bundy started killing, most sources say that he began his murderous rampage around 1974. Around this time, many women in Seattle and nearby Oregon area went missing. Stories circulated about some of the victims last being seen in the company of a young, dark-haired, good-looking man known as Ted. He often lured his victims into his car by pretending he was injured and asking for their help. Their kindness proved to be a fatal mistake. In the fall of 1974, Bundy moved to Utah to attend law school, and women began disappearing there as well. The following year, he was pulled over by police. A search of his vehicle uncovered a cache of burglary tools, a crowbar, a face mask, rope, and handcuffs. He was arrested for possession of these tools, and the police began to link him to much more sinister crimes. In 1975, Bundy was arrested in the kidnapping of Duransh, one of the few women to escape his clutches. He was convicted and received a 1 to 15-year jail sentence. Ted Bundy escaped from prison twice in 1977. The first time, he was indicted on murder charges for the death of a young Colorado woman and decided to act on his own lawyer. In the case, during a trip to the courthouse library, he jumped out a window and made his first escape. He was captured 8 days later. In December, Bundy escaped from custody again. He climbed out a hole he made in the ceiling of his cell. Having dropped more than 30 pounds to fit through the small opening, authorities did not discover that Ted Bundy was missing for 15 hours, giving the serial killer a big head start on police. After Bundy's second escape from prison, he eventually made his way to Tallahassee, Florida. On the night of January 14, 1978, Bundy broke into the Chi Omega Sorority House at the Florida State University. He attacked 4 of the young female residents, killing 2. On February 9, Bundy kidnapped and murdered a young 12-year-old girl named Kimberly Leach. These crimes marked the end of his murderous rampage, as he was soon pulled over by the police in February. The most damning evidence connected Bundy to the Chi Omega murders at FSU were bite marks on one of the bodies, which were a defensive match to Ted Bundy. With Bundy's good looks, charm, and intelligence, made him something of a celebrity during his trial. Bundy fought for his life, but was convicted and spent 9 years in death row, appealing his death sentence. In July 1979, Bundy was convicted for the 2 Chi Omega murders at FSU. He was given the death penalty twice. He received another death sentence in 1980 for the murder of Kimberly Leach. Bundy appealed, trying to take his case as high as the U.S. Supreme Court, but he was turned down. He also offered information on some unsolved murders to avoid Florida's electric chair, but he could not delay justice forever and was executed in 1989. In 1969, Bundy began a 6-year relationship with Elizabeth, whom he met in a Seattle bar. Elizabeth was a single mom with a young daughter and struggled with alcoholism. Bundy took care of her, and she said he was warm and loving. By 1974, Elizabeth started to suspect Bundy's crimes when she questioned him about odd behaviors, like keeping a meat cleaver on his desk. He used his charm to deflect her concerns. Elizabeth secretly went to the police with her suspicion of Bundy's involvement in Perpetuant local murders. but they didn't believe he was the killer. The pair remained together, although they grew distant when Bundy moved to Olympia the following year. In 1975, Elizabeth went to the police again, this time with evidence that helped them arrest the serial killer. Bundy had confessed to Elizabeth over the phone from his prison cell that he had tried to kill her and couldn't resist the impulses when he felt his sickness building in him. She later wrote she broke ties with Bundy for good and wrote a book about her experience. In February 1980, Bundy married Carol Ann Boone, a mother of two, whom he dated before his initial arrest. In the courtroom during the penalty phase of his trial, he proposed and she accepted in the presence of the judge, making the marriage legitimate in Florida. The couple had met 6 years earlier when they both worked at the Department of Emergency Services in Olympia, Washington. Boone gave birth to a daughter, Rose, in 1982, and she named Bundy as the father. Not much is known about Rose today. Boone eventually realized Bundy was guilty of all the crimes. She divorced him 3 years prior to his execution. According to Rule's book, A Stranger Beside Me, Boone stopped visiting Bundy during the last 2 years of his imprisonment. On January 24, 1989, Bundy was executed around 7 a.m. at the Florida State Prison in an electric chair, sometimes known as OLD SPARKY. Outside the prison, crowds cheered and even set off fireworks after Bundy's execution. Bundy's body was cremated in Gainesville, and no public ceremony was held. Before he was executed, he requested that his ashes be scattered in the Cascade Mountains of Washington State, where he murdered at least 4 of his victims. There you go, guys. A creep. Scumbag, whatever you want to call him. Many of you fell in love with him. He's cute, charming, intelligent. Yeah, okay, I wouldn't blame you. But still a scumbag. And now he's just a piece of toast that's put to ashes. As for his ashes being spread in the Cascade Mountains in Washington State, no. I'll go dump them in the ocean somewhere so the sharks and the fish can eat it. Even that's too good for him. Anyways, guys, like, share, get down there and subscribe. Or Ted Bundy's gonna come looking for you. Anyways, guys, later. I'm out.